So here it is, May 1941, after Rommel had that really disastrous setback of the exchange, losing some key units, most particularly this armored unit here. The Italians don't really much matter. I mean, it's a shame to lose them, but this isn't a game like some of the others where maintaining those Italians is a chore. In this one they can only do you good. But got some more forces, replacements for what he lost, but it makes his position much, much more difficult. Now, he's got to win, right? He can't just delay here. He's got to take Tobruk. He's got to move forward and either destroy the Allied army or Alexandria. Now, he's moved already, positioned his faster units here, putting a bit of threat. Now the Allies have to make a decision. Do they want to try to defend this line or fall back a little bit further? Do they have the ability to keep and the need to keep slowing the Germans down, or are they doing well enough, that they can pull back and say, okay, you're just not going to get Tobruk easily? And here at the end of the turn, the English have pulled back indeed. This is a very hard location to try to defend. It's very easy for the Germans to get you surrounded here. Up here looked impossible, the little line that they had, even if they threw more troops up. So falling back on Tobruk makes sense. What they haven't done is they haven't put a unit in Tobruk, which means they're somewhat at risk, and I was in danger of this in my game. I think it actually happened, of getting surrounded. For example, if these two hexes are taken, which requires to attack both these units, but if these two hexes are taken, this unit can be ignored, and the Allies can actually, well, they'd have to surround this one too, and that's harder. So this looks like a pretty sturdy and stable defense. I think I was more like this before. I had less forces. Anyway, that's the kind of thing you have to worry so much about in this game. In some war games, a lot less. And I don't really appreciate having to worry so much about sort of the geometrics of the attacks. But anyway, it's a simple enough game otherwise that it's not that terrible, but that ends up being what a lot of it is about. So I'll mark the turn off and we'll move on and see what the Germans can do to try to dislodge the Brits. So it took the Germans another turn to get into position where they might even attack. They're going for a 3-1 against here. It'll allow them to advance into there, probably force the Brits to fall back. It's kind of an exposed position. I thought I had a 4-1, but I didn't have enough troops for it, and I had already moved into position. I could have gone for some kind of send one of these speedy units behind to try to cut, but I didn't have enough movement to get fully in place to cut his supply. This guy I could have conceivably gotten the 5-1 on that I needed. But here I'm hitting at 3-1, which is not great odds. That's where I was before. I'm going to spend a supply. And I forgot to roll supply actually this turn. It's going to be defender back 2. Let me roll this turn supply. Yeah, I could one if I've got one. 1, 2, 3. Defender back 2, well, 2's a long way. That's Tobruk. And I can slide the Germans forward. Which ones do I want to slide? It doesn't really matter, to tell you the truth. I'm going to slide 2 infantry and the big armored unit. Because the Brits don't have enough force to really attack now. I had to spend a supply to make that attack. But now the Brits are going to be forced to kind of fall back. How can they fall back? Well, that's tough actually. They're going to have to drop to here. I've cut their supply here, which is a mistake from their point of view. These guys can of course go back wherever they like, but these guys may be in trouble. They may end up caught out of supply in a kind of painful position. The only reason I was able to advance, because there was an escarpment there. On to the Brits, see what they can do to defend themselves here. Normally, I guess people would play paying a lot more attention to what they're doing, but I'm not very good at that, and I'll make a lot of mistakes. That's what this game is really about. capitalizing on your opponent's mistakes, like maybe having this piece available to be cut. And maybe you don't even notice it until you make your attack, and then you say, oh, look, like I did, if you're kind of dumb. So more Allied forces came on the board. Some of them are shipping into Tobruk while the supplies are shipping out. I always put them there and then pull them out. Some more moving along the road to get up there, but the Germans are in a position to attack this guy, and they're attacking at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 17 to 17. Oh, sorry, 21 to 4. That's 5 to 1, right? 21 to 4, yeah, 5 to 1. They're not surrounding them because they've got the supply line there, so let's see. Defender eliminated. He's come out of here and go into that pool where, yeah, they could be used as some sort of reserve. And now this space is open to be taken. The supply goes away. We'll leave things kind of like this. I think it's a better defended position. Actually, yeah, do that. I don't think the English can get around. Now this guy's in trouble. He's been cut off from supply, which means he can't attack, and he's not going to be able to really do anything unless somebody frees him. And if he's left in that position for a couple of turns, he's just destroyed because there's zones all over isolating him there. So he might surrender very, very likely. And Tobruk itself is looking threatened, since I can't slide troops in without moving out and making an attack. On the bright side for the English, though, the Germans didn't get a supply wagon this turn. You see no more reinforcements coming in. They only got one more attack left. And if they make that attack, they're at some risk. Because coming up after this turn, they've only got a 50-50 chance of getting supply, which may mean they don't want to make an attack too quickly. Hard to tell. You might want to make that risk. Okay, so the Germans have set themselves off for a 3-1 attack on Tobruk. It looks like they're going to be able to make up for the bad roll initially here. Let's see what happens here. But let's see. Defender eliminated. That's pretty good for them. They get to advance. Now they got to be careful not to open that supply route up. They tightened it up a little bit. If they move everybody into here, they would, I think, be opening it this way. So they can't do that. But they can drop a couple of units in, making sure, and they lose their wagon. Now, important to them, they got a wagon this turn. They probably wouldn't have been able to make the attack otherwise. So this is kind of one of the issues with the supply, is as the Germans, your advance is actually going to be slowed by that. Now we're going to go to the English turn, and they're going to have to figure out how to defend the line. They may end up trying to drop a defense across here in the Bardia region to slow the German advance across the eastern area of the desert. We're already in July, so the English are going to get these additional troops to bring up. That may allow them to try to buy for time with that. We'll see. And in the second half of July, the Germans left themselves open, or the British left themselves open to another German attack. I'm looking at this, and the Germans could have placed a piece here and here surrounding this British piece. Now, they would have had to attack it there to get anything. They don't have the numbers to really do that. Worse, they don't have the supply piece. Had they left this back here, they would have been able to ship it into Tobruk and move it into place for an attack. They can't do an attack right now, so they're not going to be able to capitalize on this for a couple of reasons, basically. But it's always dangerous, and it's hard to figure out what's safe and what's not in this game. You really have to worry so much about the geometry, as I've pointed out a couple of times. End of the July turn, moving into August, more Allied garbage coming in, really, like more some infantry. They're beginning to build up a defensive line here around Bardia, which I'm used to seeing in Desert Fox as well. Not terribly historical to really try to defend that, but here's the thing. Sure, the Germans could try to cut that off, but it's painful with these escarpment line here. And I find it a useful defensive location. But you got to be kind of careful in this game, especially. Again, it's the geometry. Put a piece here. This is as far as I can get on this guy, so he's going to have an escape this way. This guy's kind of safe, but here's my weakness in my line right now is this 2-space opening there. There was nothing I could do about it except spread my defenses and maybe get this whole thing pocketed. So I don't think the Germans have the power to push their way into here, but it is a risk. And then I've got this little Desert Raider running down here. German equivalents out there, but they can't really hunt this down. Yeah, they have 4-1 on it, and if they could kill it, great. But that means losing a supply unit to do so, and that may be too high an expense. We'll see. They're within range that they actually could strike it, and that would be a bit of a loss for the British. I saw this thing cause devastation just by the threat. You know, it's moving back here. If it takes this space, no more German reinforcements while it's there. This, well, that's an annoyance. Tobruk's an annoyance, but taking the home base, that's absolutely key. So if I can do such a deep raid to there, that's horrible. Likewise, it can charge up and kind of disrupt the supply line. So it's going to force either a garrison or some other way of dealing with it. And that's one of the problems with those Desert Raiders. All right, let's see if we can squeeze in a couple more turns before this before I send this one up. Well, the Germans got no supply in the next turn. Mark that off. That's the first August turn. What's special about August 1941 is the Allies can start compacting their units into bigger or better ones in terms of like this armor. It's now a 4-4-10. It used to be a 4-4-7. Basically, they can just exchange strength points for strength points on units. So they're able to build these bigger infantry units. They give them a little bit more defensive capability. Anyway, or offensive, as the case may be. It's probably more important offensively because you can see their stacks aren't 3 high anyway. Eventually they will be, though. Ooh, this is August. I should have brought these in. And in particular, I want to bring one of these bigger, faster units in. And yeah, I could probably move a little faster if I cut across or something. I don't know. Anyway, the biggie here was the Germans didn't get supply. Now, they've got a problem. They're going to have to ship someone back through Tobruk to defend their main line because it's only it's by November that they get their victory, that they get their new troops, and right now that's a long ways away. So they're going to have to put some garrison back there. Also, they only have their 1 supply wagon, so they can't push forward. The British line around Bardia is getting kind of scary. Can it be bypassed? Maybe, maybe not. It's always risky to leave a powerful force back here because you have to leave so much of your army. You may be able to win the gamble. Hey, if they take Alexandria at this point, they win the game. They've got everything else. Of course, they have to defend against this poor sucker. All right. Here we are on the second half of August, and the Germans got a supply wagon. They sent it by sea. It's going to Tobruk. Their current supply wagon is going to get expended. They're going to make an attack here. It's not a great odds attack, but they don't know what to do. They can't break that Bardia line at this point. They're shipping a troop back. They got, I believe it's 2-1 here. With 6, 7, 8, 15, 16, 17, 18, 21 to 10. It's the best that they can do. It's a low odds attack, risky, painful, but I don't know what else to do here. They get a 2, it's an exchange. That's not pleasant. They're going to lose 10 strength points off of that. But their advance was pretty much halted if they didn't break this. So now I got to figure out how to lose 10 out of this. And that's going to be painful, to say the least. I got, I guess, I don't see any reason not to take this actually. 7, well, yeah, I do. 6, and I'll take a crappy in 7, 8, 9, 10. Losing some of my fast stuff. I don't know if this is good or not. These guys aren't permanently lost, but it's pretty close. Replacement points come in starting in March 1942. Holding to Brook helps. It's like 2 strength points a turn or something. Germans get to advance because that's an escarpment, and they will. But I don't feel in a comfortable position anymore with them. I've got to pull this back to defend against that raider. I don't have a lot here. I think the British outnumber me, and I think they may be pushing back. I'll finish the British turn. So the British were 1 space short of making it to the road where they'd have been able to drive straight into the home area. That was a little riskier than I thought it was. Just turns out they got lucky. But the British are advancing for a massive attack here. Basically, if they place themselves here, they don't quite have these guys cut off completely. But where are they going to go? They'll be cut here. They'll be able to trace supply through this kind of line. They can put themselves in that escarpment, but it's going to be really hard to keep them from losing supply completely. So if this battle is won, and I think it's like 3-1, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 to 4 is 3-1. But you're going to expend a supply for this. If this battle is won, I think it spells doom for the last remaining German decent units. Let's see what we got here. It's a 6, that's a defender eliminated. The Germans are gone. And I get to pull forward. I see no reason not to move these forward. They're not really doing me any good. So now the Germans have one little line out. And that's it. Alright, well, that's the end of this turn. And we're going into September with the Germans in a lot of trouble. I mean, Tobruk's not well defended. What they have here is strongly at risk. They can't really get through here. They can move to here, but not through, because it's an escarpment. They can't really attack. Well, maybe they can. Maybe they can get an attack off. We'll see. But it's one of those interesting situations. Alright, I'll load this one up. Okay, so I'm looking at the situation in Afrika Korps. Excuse me. Breathed funny and inhaled a lot of smoke the wrong way. And I had a unit in Tobruk, and I had the supply wagon coming in. The supply wagon comes in. I failed to roll another one. Now, I could take this unit and put it to sea, ready to land at the homeland, but the English are going to get there first. I also had a couple of key units cut off. I'm going to do an attack. If I pull this infantry forward and these guys forward, maybe I can break my units out. It ain't enough, but I've got problems here. For one thing, I'm going to lose my supply wagon, which I think dooms me. But 11, 12, 13 to 10. It's going to be a 1-to-1. I really think the game's over here. I get an attacker eliminated, which means all of these die. Rommel, he's probably dead, but there's no rules for killing him, but he's got to go someplace. He's got to go to another unit, and there isn't one. And now on the English turn, they're going to be able to shift over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and make it here. That would have prevented any additional troops from coming in anyway. And as you can see, the whole board's theirs. There are no German units on the map, and they've just made a win. You could say, if I was playing something other than this, and I made that drastic a mistake, I would probably back up and start over, start back where I was. It's kind of tough here because I knew it last time that I was playing, which was a couple nights ago actually, that it was going to be this bad. Not necessarily absolutely this bad, but that the Germans had pretty much lost by their failed attacks. But here's the thing. This is a game where this is really what it's about. It's like chess. It's about catching your opponent in one of these horrible mistakes and defeating him. And that's actually the only way I think the Germans can win, is by catching the Allies in a situation where they've put themselves too much at risk. It's much easier for the Germans to put themselves at risk, but the Germans can also, the Allies can also win just by outlasting the Germans. As long as they don't break and are able to stay on the board for the entire game without losing all their counters, without losing all their territories, then I believe the Allies, according to the rules, the Allies are guaranteed to win. And I think the game is actually somewhat slanted in the Allies' favor because of that. All right, I'm going to link this to the previous video because it's so short. And then I'll come back with a review in a bit.